Welcome troops, it's me, TheTacticalBrit, and today we are looking at the Star Wars Battlefront 2 beta, more specifically Starfighter Assault, and I wanted to dive in today some of the top tips that you guys can use in-game in order to actually successfully play the game mode, rack up some kills, and get all the points you need to unlock all the goodies you can during your short amount of time with the beta itself, and of course, when the game actually launches later this year. So, let's jump into tip number 1. First and foremost, Starfighter Assault is a complex game mode. There are many objectives that sometimes seem to enter play that can be somewhat confusing and off-putting at times. You will have main objectives that require you to attack a certain thing or defend a certain station, but you also get little side objectives that will occasionally enter play that can ultimately affect the main objectives themselves. So for example, corvettes or bombers may enter the fold to actually support the objective you are attacking or defending, and as a result of that, you kind of have a sort of semi-obligation to defend these factors when they enter the gameplay field. If you can maintain a bomber or corvette run for the entirety of the actual mode itself, it's more than likely that you will successfully win the game and take out the objectives that you're supposed to, or defend the objectives that you're supposed to, than without them. They're very effective and very useful, so don't underestimate them and don't leave them undefended. The second tip I have for you guys is a bit strange, but it will actually work once you give it a go in-game. Starfighter Assault can often feel like a very fast-paced game mode. You'll be moving at speed, it's very difficult to slow down, it's very difficult to take a moment and kind of soak in what's going on around you and use that to a tactical advantage or simply just to take out enemy opponents. And one of the biggest tips and almost one of the biggest ways to actually get kills and successfully defend objectives is actually to kind of hang back a little bit. When you fly into the mix and fly into these massive dogfights, the disorientation and the ability to lose focus on the task at hand is very easy. It's very easy to do so, and it's often very difficult to actually target enemy ships during these dogfight engagements where you're spinning around, you're flying everywhere, and things just get ultimately very difficult. But I do find that if you come into gameplay and slow down, take a second just to sort of lay back a little bit, have a look around at what's going on, look at the ships flying towards you and away from you, and line up some decent shots or potentially missile lock-ons, it actually is ultimately more effective than diving too much into the mix. Now there will be some areas in the game, such as close quarters objectives, that necessitate ultimate dogfighting and very close ranges, but if you have the ability to do so, just lay back a little bit, slow down, and let the shooting do the work for you. You can actually almost become a sort of semi-turret kind of target by sitting back a little bit and engaging enemies more tactically, thinking about who's around you, where they're flying towards, and how easy it would be, for example, to take out a bomber or an interceptor. There have been occasions where I have spawned in, sort of delayed my flight path, I haven't flown in too quickly, and I see a bomber or I see a fighter that I think is going to be raging on the objective, and I just slow down, direct my attention towards him, and take him out before he even gets a chance to lay down any pressure on the objective at all. The next tip from me is being evasive. Now, Starfighter Assault is very much a dogfighting game mode, and people underestimate just how important being evasive in the game mode itself is. It's far too easy to dive into situations where you feel as though you're the man, you're invincible, and nobody's ever going to shoot you. That doesn't happen, you will get blown up. It's not a safe world out there when you're flying around in a TIE fighter or an X-Wing. So simply, the simplest thing to do is drive in between objects. Aim to fly in between difficult antennas or things that will just simply cut up engagements and break down gameplay. If you find yourself spacing out in the open for far too long, there will come a time where somebody will simply line you up, as I mentioned in the previous tip, and just obliterate you. Flying out in the open is a fantastic idea and it's necessary sometimes, but at the best you can, especially if you're using something like an interceptor, stick to the close quarters engagements, stick to places where you'll be able to fly in and between objects that will avoid engagements being too easy or too simplistic for the enemy fighters. If you can break off a gameplay engagement by flying around something and then tail them back on and take them out, you're effectively like some MLG Top Gun Pro, and that's exactly what you should be aiming for. So stick to the close quarters, stick to the engagements that you can kind of break down in between objects, and use the evasives to the best of your ability to avoid being killed quickly by some of the tips I previously mentioned, such as people hanging back and just simply taking you out like a turret. The final and probably biggest tip I can offer you guys when it comes to the Star Wars Battlefront beta, and especially Starfighter Assault, is to focus on the goddamn objective. It can be very hard. Honestly, it's very difficult when gameplay is popping off around you. The objectives do transition sometimes that can be quite quick or can be quite slow depending on the pacing of the game, but the teams that simply focus on powering away at the objectives are the ones that win, and that doesn't necessarily mean you will get a lot of kills, especially if I'm an attacking person who needs to blow up some kind of reactor or something, or take down a shield. It's simply not that easy to do without being willing to put your life on the line and sort of fly into the mix and probably get destroyed by enemy fighters. But as long as you can drop off that payload and do an effective amount of damage to the objective, ultimately it is your team that will win and take home the extra points. So guys, I hope that's helpful for the Starfighter Assault top tips. As always, it's been me, the Tactical Brit, and thank you for watching.